In this video, I'll be highlighting some of the most accomplished and historically important Black botanists. In a world of study dominated by white men, who have made incredible discoveries in botany and horticulture, some of the greatest accomplishments were from those of African ancestry. Are you a fan of vanilla ice cream, or vanilla tea, or any of the other vanilla-flavored sweets? Well, we wouldn't have been able to enjoy vanilla at all without Edmund Albius. Vanilla comes from the Latin American orchid Vanilla planifolia. It flowers very rarely and only for one day. They are naturally pollinated by bees and hummingbirds, but for commercial production, they must be pollinated by hand. This was a tedious and time-consuming effort and was revolutionized by Edmund when he was just 12 years old. Born around the year 1829 in Réunion, an island in the Indian Ocean east of Madagascar, Edmund was orphaned from the start when his enslaved mother died in childbirth. At the time, French colonists had hoped to begin vanilla production in Réunion, but the vines were sterile without a natural pollinator. Edmund's colonist master, Mr. Beaumont, taught him the basics of botany and how to fertilize flowers. And in 1841, Edmund invented a way to quickly pollinate vanilla flowers. Using a blade of grass or a thin stick, Edmund lifted the rostellum, the flap separating the male and female parts of the flower, and rubbed the two together with his thumbs, self-pollinating the plant. After this, Réunion became the world's largest vanilla supplier. Almost 200 years later, Edmund's method is still used to this day. Edmund never received proper recognition, but eventually, he did gain his freedom. George Washington Carver is one of the greatest inventors and agricultural scientists in American history. His work convinced the United States population that peanuts were a nutritious food as well as being good for agricultural soil. Now, more than 700 million pounds of peanut butter are eaten every year in the United States. Born into slavery in Missouri just before its abolition in 1865, George and his brother were adopted by their former slave owners after the kidnapping of their mother. He left his home at the age of 12 to find a school in another town that would accept Black students. After receiving his high school diploma, he was accepted at Highland University in Texas, but when he arrived, he was rejected because of his race. But he didn't let that stop him, and went on to become the first Black man to graduate from Iowa Agricultural College in 1896, earning his bachelor's and master's degree in agricultural science. George was invited to teach at the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. He taught farmers how to grow various crops like sweet potatoes and peanuts, which improved the quality of the soil, were nutritious to eat, and would earn them more money. George also invented and taught a method of rotating crops grown from year to year as a means to not exhaust the soil. He learned that years of growing cotton had depleted the soil nutrients, and by growing nitrogen-fixing plants like peanuts, the soil could be restored. Even President Theodore Roosevelt often sought his advice when it came to agriculture. His work with crop rotation continues to remain the standard for sustainable agriculture in the South. George went on to invent many products for peanuts, including flour, linoleum, dyes, soaps, and even mechanical oils. And in his free time, he would paint using pigments made from botanical materials such as vegetables and tree bark. Dr. Mary Clark Taylor became the first Black woman to ever receive a PhD in botany in 1941. She was especially fascinated in studying the influence of light on plant growth. Taylor was the botany department chair at Howard University and helped design and construct their botanical greenhouse lab. Taylor also facilitated many teacher training workshops on innovative methods that utilized microscopes. And in the 1960s, she was asked by President Johnson to expand her teaching programs overseas to other countries. Mary C. Cull was a British Jamaican woman known for overcoming racial divide and prejudice to help others. C. Cull was born in 1805. Her father was a Scottish soldier. Her mother was a Jamaican doctress, a healer who used African and Caribbean herbal remedies. C. Cull learned nursing and doctress skills from her mother, who ran a boarding house for wounded soldiers. 1853 saw the beginning of the Crimean War, and C. Cull wanted to help. Even after she was turned down by the War Office for her race, she still set up her own hospital near the fighting and used her herbal remedies to care for sick and injured soldiers. Some of her many remedies included lemon to treat coughs, lemongrass to treat fever, okra to treat boils, and aloe vera to treat skin cuts. Anne Spencer, born in 1882, was a poet, civil rights activist, and gardener. Her poetry was highly influential during the Harlem Renaissance, often featuring verses connecting to her own garden. Anne lived with her husband in a cottage in Lynchburg, Virginia. She would use her garden as a refuge and inspiration for her work. She opened her home to many community members and activists during segregation in Virginia. And today, her home and garden make up the Anne Spencer House and Garden Museum. Several restoration projects have been completed at the site, with the goal of remaining historically accurate and keeping the original spirit of Anne's garden alive. While it seems as though we've come a long way in treating each other as equals, the history we are taught is still highly subjective. More often than not, historical accomplishments made by people in minority groups are omitted from our history books. Recognizing crucial figures in history enriches all of us. It reminds us that we are reaping the rewards because of those who came before us. And that means that what we do now, today, in this moment, can have an impact that lasts for generations. So let's plant our seeds now while the soil's still rich. There is no time except the present time. Use it well, just like they did. If you like this video, please interact with it. It lets me know if I'm making content you enjoy. Leave a comment letting me know your thoughts and share it with a friend. This has been Jake, also known as Plant Gay for Life.